I'd have some onions here, and then I have clover growing with it. It didn't work well because I didn't water it enough, and I had to redo it. But that's one of the downsides of this year. On this side over here, I want to show you something. So these are a melon called Minnesota Midget or something. I just wanted to try and see how they do in the fall. But at the same time, I planted garlic. So these guys will die with the frost, but the garlic, one planting at the same time. I don't have to do any, I plant it at the same time. So I'm not going back over it again. Just doing two things at one time. Same thing behind you. You can see I have some Napa and garlic. When the Napa gets harvested, the garlic's going to open up more space for the garlic. All right, down here. So I had this bed here was before I planted the kale was buckwheat. And if you know, buckwheat always comes back, right? Because you can never get it. It flowers uneven, and so you sometimes, if you don't cut it at the right time or kill it. Buckwheat is a summer cover, so it's keeping my soil alive during the summer. It was in August, and I wasn't quite ready for the kale. Wasn't ready to plant, so I planted this bed buckwheat. I let it flower, and then I cut it, and basically same thing. Cut it to the ground, and then plant the new crop into it, which was the kale, and then wood chips. Now it came back, and I'm allowing it to come back because what does it do? It's bringing in the pollinators. So the pollinators are coming back, and it's not doing any harm. And when the frost comes, it'll die, and it will go on its way. Okay, and it'll probably drop new seeds, and I'll probably have it again next season, which I don't care because it'd be spotty and bringing in pollinators. And if it's weedy, it's not if it comes in too much, it's really not a problem because it just comes out so easily. Okay, so that's a summer cover, keeping your soil alive when you don't have something else, an actual crop or something growing in it. This is an example of some peas and rye, and these are the Australian winter peas. I watered this in, but you know what? The henbit loved it too. So we're going to have some henbit, and that's what these little guys are.
You do like an intercropping? Do you normally do mix?
I just walk down and throw it down.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
I don't really do a mix.
Okay. Use them individually.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. So I want to show you an example of. Get my clippers. Any questions? Oh, over here. Here's favas. That's what favas look like when they're planted early. I planted these early in September, and they're flowering right now. Which supposedly favas aren't supposed to flower until the change of the sun. Where right now we're getting less and less sun, but they don't flower supposedly until they get stimulated by having more and more sun, like but because the season's so crazy, maybe temperature also has a factor in that. Okay, couple examples. This is my garden. Like if I had a garden at home when I do my classes, I go, this is what my garden's going to look like. And it looks like most people's gardens, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have some holy basil. I always have holy basil growing. I dry this, and that's what's blooming left. I dry it and make tea out of it. It is the best thing in the world. Are you guys all familiar with holy basil?
Yeah.
And then, of course, the bees love it, the honeybees, and then the other wild pollinators, they all love it. So it's always grown in my garden. Everybody familiar? You familiar with holy basil? You all are?
Yeah. Does great things.
Love so I dry this, and I have like every winter I have 2 or 3 mason jars full, and then I just add it to my tea when I come home to calm me down.
Yeah.
Not that why it would be so crazy, but it's not crazy here. Crazy over there, but not here. It's very light here. So anyway, this is it's kind of messy right now. It needs to be weeded, but there's a whole system in how I plant. And
What are some of these other things?
Mostly kales.
Mostly
and this
kales.
is komatsuma. And then we always have my perennial onions. That's a perennial walking onion. It's a fantastic onion. You can cut it, and it just keeps coming back, and it dies back in the winter, summer a little bit, and then it comes right back again.
Do you? How do you eat it? Do you like pick up the whole thing and?
No, I would. What I do is I There you go.
So like a leaf?
Well, I eat it, chop like
Chop
a green
it up,
onion.
yeah.
Okay.
Green onion. Like leeks, yeah, or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, that's kind of messy. I didn't mean to show that. But there's some onions
Stop.
planted. Huh? It's like what a home garden. Yeah. So when I do my classes, I'm like, this is what my garden looks like.
Spicy?
Well,
It's a little stronger.
see
Yeah.
some onions in
Then green onions.
A little bit.
Okay.
Okay.
That's cool.
What I'm going to show you over here. Show you a couple examples of I mentioned before the basil, right? Like, what am I going to do when the basil's done? So, in this situation, I chose to plant some. These are the Australian winter. These are the clover, red crimson clover. What I'm going to do, and I'm just going to show you. First thing, I got a lot of wood chips in this bed, so I'm going to open them up just a little bit, okay? I don't want them to be hard like this because it's not going to be able to germinate, right? So I'm going to open them up a little bit and level them out. So there's a little bit of soil here and there. Okay, that's the first thing. Obviously, if this is a whole bed, it's hard to do that. But you can still see I got the peas to germinate down there. I don't think if this soil was a whole bed, I would do crimson clover because I wouldn't be able to get the soil, the wood chips and everything to get this material to have a little bit of soil here. But because these guys are small in this situation, they're going to fall nicely in between there, okay? This is all I'm going to do. They're going to fall into the nooks and crannies. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I don't really measure, I just make sure I get an even coat. I'm going to cut it. Sometimes you got to play around with it a little bit to get it to do what you want. Now, if you had a flare mower, that would work in a large garden, or I had a BCS at my old farm down in Griffin, and so I would flare mow everything, which is just a mower that leaves it right in place. It's just this big box, and everything stays. Doesn't blow it. And so there's not a lot of leaves on this today. But now, if this was rye, I would do the same thing. So in the during when the rye in the spring or the crimson clover and the kale, I would do the same thing. Just chop it. All we do is chop it to the ground. Leave that mass material. Hopefully, we would have a huge mass because of the rye growing, right? So it would be really hot. And now I'd have this mass of material here. Okay, we have two things. Okay. Now, this time of year, I'm going to plant some kale in there along with the clover, okay? That's okay. And so in a regenerative system, how we keep our soil alive and add new material is we do it at planting. So when we're planting, we dig a hole. And then we add compost. This is compost, coffee grounds, and ash. And we add that back into the hole. Mix it up with the soil, plant into it. Okay? That's how we constantly are adding. So if we do one here, one here, one here, one here, one here, whatever, we're adding, you see how much material we're adding back into the bed. We're constantly adding back to the bed. That's okay. After that, what's the next thing? Well, we could do wood chips. We could do a couple things next. We could throw down coffee grounds on top. Okay, to start breaking down the wood chips that we're going to put. Okay, so that, I don't have an example, but we're going to pretend. So what I would do is I would then take coffee grounds, just sprinkle it. Now, when we're putting this down on the wood chips, we're putting it down like powdered sugar on a cake. Okay, just like I just did there. Now, when it rains, all those grounds are going to get in between the nooks and crannies of the wood, and they're going to hopefully, the microbes are going to say, hey, and the fungus, and it's going to be nice and wet, and they're going to start trying to break that down, okay? So just like that. Then, another layer of wood chips. In this case, since we already have some, we're not going to put down a huge layer, but we are going to cover everything so that there is no soil showing. About 1/4 of an inch, maybe. Okay? Now your bed's protected. Also, one more thing. And then water, because we're not going to get any rain till next year. And so we're going to water everything really well. Okay? Not only right now, today, but we're going to come back in another day and water it again. Okay? And we're going to water it every couple days. Until we get something to germinate. We don't have to every couple of days. If it's cloudy like this, we're probably fine. But we need to keep it watered and keep it moist so that the stuff germinates. Okay. Especially the cover. Once you see the cover coming up, once you see it like over here, especially the day that you see it coming up, see if you have some, let's see, that's not coming up. I do have cover in here. This is some, right here is some stuff coming up. This is lentils. See the lentils? Let me see if I can pull it out. Anyway, that's some lentils right there. Once you start seeing it coming up, then water it again, because that's like they're ready. And I find that once they come up and you do it a water really heavy that time, once you see them a little bit poking, everything else comes up along with it, and all the other, it just like stimulates everything to come up even better than to wait for the rain or whatever. So that's one thing, I always water it. But in this situation this year, and because we haven't had any heavy rain, it doesn't look like we're going to get any heavy rain, just water it a lot. Okay? Yeah. So we're going to water it, and then that's it. And if you meditated and was into meditation, we would call now allowing. Leave it alone and let it do its thing. Just allow. Which is really hard because I can allow out here, but I don't do very well off the farm. You don't know what it is. Because I'm not poking. You're not poking. Like, where are you? How come you're not coming up? Yeah. You get what I'm saying.
You do what it do.
I get a little side stuff in here in my talks. Okay. There we go. How's that? You guys get that?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Thank you.
Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Now the whole idea also is we're with the wood chip, especially we cut this down, let's say in the spring with clover and clover or other things that are growing, crimson clover, rye, whatever's with it. The whole idea is that we don't want to disturb the soil because we don't want to have weeds come up. Okay, and so we want to make sure. So we cut it. We have that layer of mass. We plant into it. We put another layer of wood chip on top. Okay, and the goal is to constantly build soil and not disturb the soil, because when you disturb it, then you're going to bring up weed seeds and stuff like that. We don't want to weed, and we weed a ton already. I mean, I got like dandelion and Okay, what's that?
Aren't you eating the
It's kind of bitter.
It is. Mix it in with some other grains.
Let's move on to the next bed. Let me tell you my next thing here. All right.
It's good for you.
So,
You said what?
Dandelion.
What do you
It's
do?
good for you. It's good, but it's good for you. Mix it with some other grains.
That is actually good to know because I have low blood pressure. I've been told
Okay.
you can't have sugar.
So this is sweet potatoes. I already harvested them already.
Don't get excited.
This is one of the few times where the bed doesn't have a lot of wood chips, but usually after sweet potatoes, the bed is kind of low. Okay, in this situation, this is when I add compost back. Okay, and so sweet potatoes and maybe something you may grow that your wood chips are low, would be a good time to add there's not a lot of wood chips there, to add compost back in. Okay, so we add it when we plant, but periodically this bed after sweet potatoes tend to be low, and so that's when I add compost back. I'm just going to show you today. None of this stuff is just stuff that kind of hits me what I grow, and sometimes it works, sometimes. Okay, so I'm going to level this out a little bit. What do you think of that soil? Okay?
It's not red.
It's all right.
Yes, it's not red.
And I'm going to get rid of some of that.
Okay. Just,
And I'm going to put that in the aisle, and that's going to keep
okay.
my weeds down in the aisle a little bit, hopefully.
Oh, okay.
And there's Bermuda in here.
Some winter rye in there.
You guys can ask questions. No questions?
With your sweet potatoes, I know sometimes people say, you should rotate your crops into different beds, but I've heard some people say, like, sweet potatoes, you just need to leave them in the bed that they're at, that you always grow them in.
I rotate.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole rotation thing, I'm going to get real big here, philosophical, but in regenerative, though, the idea, I think, eventually comes to the point where rotation isn't really necessary if you're running your animals through, right? Because they're bringing that cycle back, the nutrient cycle back. We don't add animals back in, so we can't do that. So that, I think the rotation came from disease problems from synthetic growing. Okay, so there's some different thinking here going on, but in the system as we have now, if you don't have animals, then I would still recommend that you would then rotate. Okay. So that you're not sucking out because you're not adding back.
Do you grow anything in the bed with the sweet potatoes?
Yeah.
What's that?
Do you grow anything else in the bed with sweet potatoes?
No, they take over so much that it's really hard to for them to do anything else. And I'll give you a little Farmer Jeff thing here that I do. I don't do shoots or any of that other stuff. You know, where you get the little.
Right.
Oh.
You plant the actual
What do you
potatoes.
plant? Yeah.
Where's Max? He's over there. Hey Max, can you bring over a container of sweet potatoes for me?
Okay, so you don't do the shoots. What
I
about?
actually take I save the small sweet potatoes. These guys right here. Maybe I have one. I can show you where we're. Okay, something like that. I put them in a bag. Put some holes in the bag so it breathes. Put them in my refrigerator. And then this is new. I don't know anyone else ever said this. So you can quote me if you say this is what Farmer Jeff does. And then I put them in the ground. Now, it takes forever. And you're like, oh, when the hell are these things coming up? I mean, it takes months from the sprout, but when they do, they get fine. Another way is to take this and put it in a pot. Get it to root, and then transplant it into the pot, and it will take off. That way you can get it going faster.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I don't need them anymore now.
Found one.
Sorry. You were just over there playing. I wanted you to do something. So next year I'm not gonna put them in the ground because it takes too long. The problem why it takes too long, what happens is your weeds then start growing, and we don't want that. Okay, we want the sweet potato to take off and shade the ground so we don't have weeds coming in. Okay.
What about with the cover crops? Because you said in the regenerative process, I guess part of the reason why we move it to the different beds is because it's not doing it naturally. So how about when we're adding like the cover crops and other things, the nitrogen and all that other stuff, is that not regenerating it as well with this? Okay.
It is, but still, sweet potatoes are a heavy feeder.
Okay, so they need a lot.
So we need to be adding things back. And so that is one reason why what I'm going to do right now is that's why I refill my beds when I do it. And so what I do is I get compost and I'll layer compost back. Now, there's a lot of growers, I'm going to be controversial here, so I'm sorry, but there's a lot of things where growers go out and they put a layer of wood chips, of compost, let's say like this, and then they plant into that. Are you guys familiar with that? Yeah. Some farmers do that. Some growers here do that. Hopefully I won't offend anybody. Well, let's talk about that for a second. What is compost?
Broken down organic matter.
Yeah.
So it's full of nutrients, full of microbes. What is the sun doing?
Cooking it.
It's degrading it. It's blowing away.
Oh.
The wind's blowing away. The rain is blowing it away. It sits up here, and then what happens is these growers, and they get this from some guy in Canada, John Luke, whatever. He's in Montreal. You know who
I know who you're talking about exactly.
Just the front yard.
No, he's a,
No, I know
Okay,
who you're talking
okay.
about as well. The one who he's always
John Luke
Yeah.
something, and he's famous, and he's got tons of books.
the
A
Market
lot
Gardener.
of his stuff he says is wonderful.
Yeah, the Market Gardener.
Mark and Gardner.
And he lives in Canada,
Yeah.
so it's a little different.
It's a little different.
that's where I was
Yeah,
going.
a lot. That is true.
Where I'm going, his soils don't even get to 70 degrees, let alone 70 degrees in September, right?
November.
So
might have snow
maybe,
right now.
right, November. Maybe up there it may be work fine for him,
Okay.
but here, when you soils are getting 80, now it's black too, okay? So it's going to be 100 degrees. There's nothing here anymore. You're
Yeah, Friday.
pissing in the wind.
Yeah.
So don't do it.
That's
all.
what we did this year, and I lost every crop. It just burned up.
They burn because it's hot. Yeah, and it's making the soil hot around it. Yeah.
Every first.
So, second thing I want to mention: when you podcasts and guys find out where they are. This guy's up in Canada now. Canada. What else is going on in Canada? Right? We have 8 hours. We have 13 hours of sun here, maybe in July. They have 20. Right. So they can grow a cabbage that big in a month and take us like a year. Okay, there's a lot of factors that are different. So while you could pick up information and ideas, kind of be careful where they're coming from. Okay, not that he's wrong or that he's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
You get what I'm saying? All right, I don't want to offend anybody then.
I'm actually Canadian. How dare you?
No, she's
Recording, so no, this is all for this is educational purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is wrong, and she doesn't like Canadians. All right, so we're gonna spread this out.
Okay.
I'm not gonna till it in. I'm not gonna turn it, and the reason is we're gonna put wood chips on top. So why bother, right?
What about an
I'll
end?
put a little more. This is from Compost Now, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, Compost Now picks up our food waste here. You can see the black containers maybe out there. Compost Now picks up our waste, and then somehow they get it.
Yep, we have.
We actually, I get some from them too. Okay, so we're just going to level this out. Now, I'm just going to do a small piece here. So, next, I'm going to experiment. So I want this bed to be permanent clover for next year, and white clover. So I got the white clover here. So we're going to put that down. And after you guys leave, I'm going to do the whole bed. And so we're just going to throw this down. I'm kind of thick, okay? But I want to show you. So there's my clover. That's going to be a permanent clover. It's going to be fixing nitrogen all summer long. It's going to be nice and beautiful, and hopefully no weeds.
You're saying permanent clover?
Yes, permanent white clover. The bed will be all clover. What ends up happening is, I'm going to put even more down. Ends up happening is you get a lot of big piece clover of white clover will come up, and it won't be like here on the ground. I don't have any clover here right in this section, but it'll be a lot of clumps of it, but it will still be really cool. And then you plant in between it. It won't get too high. It won't bother your crop. So if I come back here now and plant tomatoes or something, the clover will be around the tomatoes.
Okay. Nice. Yeah.
Now, right now, wrong one. So the next thing I'm going to do is, I haven't planted my turnips yet this year, so we're going to throw some turnips down too. And I'm going to have, they're not going to bother each other, the root. And then, so same thing, here are my turnip seeds. And I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to try to do it a little lighter. And now, I can do turnip greens. If they're too close together, I'll come in and thin them and have turnip greens and just leave some for turnips to grow. Okay, so you're saying now, farmer, how's that going to work? Well, the next thing we do is I'm going to just put another layer of compost over everything, so I have a good cover. Okay, because now those seeds are really tiny. So you notice I took two tiny seeds, right? The rule of thumb is when you plant in, you do a third. of the depth. So you go, well, did I say that right? 3 times the size of the seed is the depth of soil that you cover. So I'm just going to cover it that much.
Okay.
And then we're going to put a light layer of wood chips on top and then water it. Okay? I'm going to kind of hurry here. I'm just going to do a little section so we can move on. You guys get that?
Yeah.
Yes.
But I'm going to do something else here. We're just going to do a little line right here. Really important you get soil contact. So that's pretty much where I did it, right? You can go like that too. Okay? So now you got your soil contact.
Okay.
I would water it before I put the wood chips down, just to make sure, because I want my crop to really bad to come. I want my turnips to come up. Covers, they'll sit there for, like rye will sit forever until it rains. Not ever. Plants with bugs and birds will eat it, but it will sit there for a while. Okay, so now I'm watering it. And a nice level. Now, because these aren't heavy, they got leaves in there, like I mentioned before. I'm not going to put it down too heavy, and they should all be able to come up through the leaves. They'll push the leaves aside. It's protected. It's not going to warm up too much. It's not going to dry out. And I will still water it fairly once or twice a week until it comes up. But not muddy. All right, what do you guys think?
Nice. I like that. Easy breezy.
So if you use wheat straw, it would be, not to your advantage. The dry leaves are definitely more,
Yeah, the wood chips in this system,
and
the
the
wood
mix.
chips will work.
Yeah, better breakdown.
Better breakdown.
More
Yep.
natural.
All right, what do you guys think? Good?
Another
Then
question
wheat straw,
on the.
it had wheat seeds in it and stuff, and it just started
Well,
Well,
popping
let's
up.
talk
Yeah.
about that for 1 second.
Yeah.
Let's talk about wheat. If you're buying it at Home Depot and you're getting wheat straw from Home Depot,
Not here.
you don't know
No, you don't know
where
the
how it's
process.
grown.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Okay, and it could have. There's a lot of forever pesticides that are on stuff that are grown now. So you could bring it back to your garden and put it down and plant tomatoes with it, and your tomatoes will die.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's still some forever chemicals. It happens every year. I'm sure you read stories or you've heard people where it happens every year. Somebody buys some from
Know
Home
where your
Depot.
straw comes from.
You don't know where the straw, and you don't know how it's whether it's been.
Treated in any way, yeah.
And now, if it's organic, that's different. Okay, if you know it's organic, that's straw. So
What
that's
about the
why I
whole
recommend,
leaves? Some people were saying with the mulch that you need to cut down the leaves rather than whole leaves. What do you think about that? Because they were saying that sometimes it causes molding in the soil. Have you heard anything about that?
Well, don't we want molding in the soil?
Yeah.
Okay.
We want the microbes. We want the decomposition. We want all that.
Okay.
The trees were cut in like August or July, probably July. Those came in July, and so those trees had leaves already on it, and that's why there's leaves are in this.
In that. Okay.
Okay.
So that's a good thing. Got it.
Yeah.
All right.
Next to me here is just some of my Bermuda beds. These beds I got to figure out, but what I've done is it was grassy worse than that. That actually is a cover of rye, and you can see some vetch in it, and it didn't work because it was dry. But I mowed, but before I mowed, I threw down the rye, and so there's material covering the rye, the grass and stuff, and hopefully if we get some rain, that will come up.
You mow with a weed eater? You actually put a mower in there?
I put a lawnmower. Yeah, I picked the
mower in
lawnmower
there.
up and I mow.
That's what I do.
It's very simple. That's all I have.
The irrigation.
Huh? Well, so that's the downside. If the irrigation is poking up, then it will
yeah.
get cut. But next spring, I have little connectors. I just connect it back. I don't worry about it too much, unless it gets wrapped around and then I'm like, I'm swearing. But I usually leave it unless it's poking up. The irrigation, by the way, there's irrigation here now. You just don't see it because the idea, my goal. So the reason why some of it's still showing is it's only been a year since we've been doing the irrigation. So some beds like this has it. Oh no, it's down there. I lied. That one doesn't have it. This one does, but it's here. And some beds, I'm trying to get it to a point where it's covered with wood chips. You can see it's beginning to get covered in some areas, but we'll get there. It is a 6-inch drip. And I probably, since this is only the first year and a half I've done it, I probably may add to some beds a 4th line. But that's what we're using. Oh, wood chips done. Okay, makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to my next bed.
You don't keep the sweet potato vines, right? You decompost those separately, or like you don't keep them as a cover of any kind?
What I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to flip them to one of those beds there.
Oh.
Or flip them on, probably I'm going to leave them
Okay.
and then flip them on this bed here, because this is the tomatoes are almost done. It's getting really late in the season. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plant fava beans. Favas, those big seeds, can come right through all that material really easily. So I'm going to flip it, put it on this bed, and that will be my, so I don't really, right now I'm just kind of keeping it covered. The only real thing is these fall tomatoes. Did some experiments with why are we trellising? Is that a synthetic thinking, or should we just let them roam and get the right variety and all that? And I'm still working on that idea.
Okay.
I was just gonna ask about that.
Yeah.
If you started
Because everybody tells you to.
Yeah, I just sent those late. I was
Yeah.
planning in August, July, and they did fine actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you planted them in
They would
May,
bug.
well, and they would just keep, it would outgrow the space. I would.
String.
The tomatoes.
That's why tomato cake
Tomatoes?
is worse here.
They don't work. No, I don't. They don't work. And cherry tomatoes, by the way, is a vine, and I'm doing all kinds of experiments on the fence and stuff where we don't ever tie them up. They just come back every year.
Oh, okay.
And I
Just right
just
on the
throw
fence.
some old tomatoes back in the ground. They come back up. They stay up along the fence and climb because they're a vine.
Got it.
Something I'm working on, and
Okay.
it's all takes some. That's what we do here. This is more of a education and maybe slightly research farm,
Yeah.
and to show what can be done in your yard.
Yeah.
Behind you here again is you can see the Bermuda came back, but there is some vetch in here, and there is some rye. This bed's a little bit better, but it's mostly Bermuda. But I think, and I'm hoping, I threw some more rye down. Maybe we'll get some more rye to come up, and I can mow it and then suffocate the Bermuda. But we'll see. I may have to sterilize it just by putting plastic and then starting over, but I don't want to do that because I'd kill everything. But how else are we going to be able to with Bermuda? Not quite sure.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer.
Got it.
Okay, moving on. You guys, any other questions? So, can you understand why covers, I want to go back to covers for a second, why it's the secret sauce, why this is so important, why I find it, for me, so exciting. Why is it so important that if we don't grow anything, we're just hurting ourselves all winter, right? We're just like starting from and it's so important. And not everybody, I go home at Christmas to Boston, and I fly over to the country, and I look down, and you see so much soil that's not being covered at all, nothing growing. I mean, that's December, right? So, and you're in Pennsylvania, you're not, I mean, it's too late now to put that on cover.
That's some problem in the farm.
Huh?
That's some problem. It flew away.
But what hole are we living in? We can't even take care of our soils. I don't quite understand that. And yet I can see it every year when I go home. It's so important because it's all about keeping the soil alive, keeping it going, and feeding the microbes and all the chemistry that goes on in there. Which I would say, if anybody wants to study, you young people want to study soil, that's where there's a lot that we don't know about. My brother, by the way, is a deep water diver. He goes off and dives out in the ocean at night, and he takes pictures of all the lava of fish, because they all at night, because of the current down by Boca where he is, all the lavas come up to the top and feed, and then go back down way deep. We're talking super deep. So he's taking pictures of things that have never been seen alive. They've collected it in nets, but they've never seen of it in its full. And it's amazing what these things look like. The only reason why I mention that is because he's identified, I think, 5 species of things that's never been seen before.
Wow.
Just by diving at night and taking pictures. That's the ocean. what about our soil too? I think there's a lot going on in our soil that we don't know about.
Yeah.
And a lot of it we do know, but it's been hidden because synthetic and chemical farming has taken over. And people who spoke out thinking of this growing the way we grow were probably poo-pooed or didn't get their money for the research at universities, and so it's all put on the back burner or hidden or just not talked about. So it's there. And anyway, my point is that it's so important, and we'll move on. I got some favas and vetch. And the vetch, you can see the vetch climbing up on the basil. Another way of holding it up. And then this was, I had some eggplant here for another class, and but I chopped it and it comes back, and that's okay. It'll die once it gets cold.
All right, in the spring, do you pull the basil? You just leave it?
No, I'll just chop it more.
Chop it.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Did I say that? I forgot. Okay, I have a little experiment down here I want to show you.
Oh, wow. The squash. Hope you guys are enjoying the tour of the farm with Farmer Jeff and the information we're learning on cover crops, why they're important, and for the season that we're in.
Come down on this side here and see maybe better.
This is the greenhouse area.
Yep, I start everything in here.
Okay.
And then I have all kinds of other stuff that I play around. So right here you see some white clover. Another way you could do it is a clover bed. And now this is small, but it's easy. You can see when it's taken care of how nice it looks when I broadcast it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grow some onions. And this is the perfect time to plant your onions or some other crop, kale, collards, whatever, to get your clover done first and then plant into your onions. Now when I grow my onions, I grow them in big blocks like that, and then I come back and I thin them until I have one or two, and then I let those grow the rest of the season. Okay, and so all I'm going to do, and then again in the regenerative system, we're always adding, and this, so this is compost and coffee grounds and ash. So all I'm going to do is just make a hole, move that around a little bit. There we go. And that clover's going to go right around it.
Nice.
So we're going to kill some of the clover, but that's fine. We have too much anyway, and that's going to go right around everything.
Okay.
Okay, so you could do that if you want to do it in sessions, like plant all your beds with your covers, and then come back after they come up and plant your kales and collards and all that. If you do that in the summer, you're going to have to water it really well. Keep it constantly watered, but here's another way of you being able to make sure your cover's grown, where I'm kind of spotty in some beds and stuff. It's a little more work, but all right. So another one right here.
What would be the disadvantage if you planted first?
Do it both at the same time?
Yeah.
Nothing, but what happens, nothing. You just have to water them all together. This is just another example where I tried something different.
Okay.
Because I wanted to make sure I had this. This is planned to be a permanent bed of clover all summer. So when you guys come back, you can see this and see what I'm growing in it. This is one of my experiments. And so I wanted to make sure the clover was up before I... it's a little harder to go back and plant clover again after you plant it.
Okay.
In this bed I got some Australian winter peas, and I have some Australian winter peas. Does that make sense? Does that give you guys...
Yes.
So I'm trying to give you a couple different ways of doing things, how to make it work on your gardens.
It's real good info.
Let me get my clipboard, see where we're at.
I did not understand how to use cover crops. So now it makes sense. Got it.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm just showing some more of the farm. Going around looking at some more of what Farmer Jeff has here planted. Like you guys, and this is fall, you know. Some of these things, as he was saying, he could reuse, or some of these just need to be
You know, I never went over this
harvested.
handout real. I meant to,
Some of
but I
these
forgot.
can be used
Now that we've
for
gone through all
replanting.
that, let's just do a little rehab here.
Maybe they didn't come
of all
fully
the
in, but you
benefits
can
of
use them
cover
for
crops, right?
replanting.
Prevent soil erosion, increases biodiversity.
Let's learn some more.
Nitrogen, those are the legumes. Rye, for instance, is a scavenger for nitrogen or unused fertilizer. Reduces soil compaction, right? Because the plant is keeping the soil alive in a healthy soil. Attracts pollinators. So in the spring, when the crimson clover is flowering, it will bring in the pollinators for the spring. Weed control. Hopefully the cover will be much faster, like the rye over there in that little bed, and prevent other weeds from coming in, like the henbit. Increase organic matter. That's when it died. We're adding organic matter to the soil. Increase biodiversity. Improves water holding capacity. Disease. One thing about rye, I will say, it's there's that word again, allelopathic.
There we go.
Basically, you can kill the rye and plant into it, but you can't seed, because rye roots have a chemical that prevents other seeds so that's something to think about. But that's also something to think about as far as weed control. Okay? So if I had a whole bed of rye and clover and I killed it and then planted into it, I'm pretty much, and this is what happens here, is we just don't have much weed problem for most of the summer. Unless it's like dandelion and there's already a root there, but there isn't any new stuff. Okay? Builds organic material and increases your yields in the future. Okay? So we talked about the two types of covers. We have a legume and a non-legume. We all know that, right? Legumes covers clovers, veg beans, things like that. And then non-legumes would be grasses like barley, wheat, oats, and things like that. Okay?
For something like rye, like how many years until you could seed into it after it's been used?
Oh, it's just that next.
Just a season? Okay.
Yeah, you're good after that. A little bit about terminating it. In the back, it gives you a great here, but usually I plant into the rye after it. I cut it, and it depends on the time of year, but what's going on, if it's rainy or what. But generally, after I cut the rye and the clover, or the crimson clover, the rye, whatever I'm growing with, I usually wait a week or two, let it dry. Again, now if it comes back, then I just mow it with my lawnmower. But you want to get it pretty much before the seeds start in the rye become rye seeds. You want to get it when it's still in the milky stage. Is best. Because you may then have rye come back again, which may not be a problem. But all right, so I got that covered. Any questions there? Did I'm always a little early on my. I talked about that. Inoculant, I talked about that. Watering, I talked about watering. All right, anything else? Any questions about the farm?
How long have you been operating here?
So this was a lot that had well, okay, to answer your question, 7 years. But this was a lot that there was a metal fence that was all beat up, and there were little shrubs out here
Wow.
when I got here. So I designed everything.
Wow. 7 years, you guys.
It's not ideal. Like when we had all that rain, we had some we have areas and beds that are they're even raised on gravel in the middle over there. And still the water, they still have wet feet. Some summers, like a couple summers ago, we had a lot of rain at a certain period of time, and the eggplant all died because it was just still too wet. Yeah, because it's not a flat field; it's kind of dips and stuff. Yeah, so it's not because we're not growing in it, but still the water's sitting.
Here's the wood chips that he was using, as he was saying. wood chips mixed with some of the leaves as the trees were cut down. And that is what he was using on top of after his planting and after putting down the compost soil. We put the mulch on for moisture retention. And so we water, then we put the mulch on for moisture retention. And that's what the wood chips he was teaching a little bit earlier. And the leaves that are there that actually help with the composition of the soil. Alright guys, so welcome in Threaded Links, Threaded Ink Des. Okay, Threaded Ink, we're just going to call it that. Just wanted to show y'all a little bit of this farm that I was at this morning. Visiting, had a class, learning some things, so I wanted to share some. I have some more videos that I took, and so on a little bit more on cover crops. We'll learn about cover crops during this season, the fall and the winter. Cover crops are important, as he was saying, to make sure that we're not starting over in the spring, you know, because everything has died out over the cold season and the winter season. We want to make sure that we have something growing here and the soil is being regenerated, so that we'll be stronger and ready to grow in the spring, which is a strong and very important growing season. So let me turn the camera around. My bad. Hey everybody, so I just got put my hat on. So I am so glad to share with y'all what I was learning this morning. And so hopefully I will be able to bring to you some more information. Check our videos. We got some videos that are coming up on gardening, on farming, those that are starting their areas and they just need information from some seasonal farmers that have been doing this for a while. Some of the techniques that they use, the information as to why certain things are done and how you can make it work for you. So I'll be back with more tips and tricks, but happy Saturday and happy gardening. Talk again soon. Bye.